know the person who wrote whatever plugin? And we're like, he wrote the plugin. So he's very well established and well known on site speed and how to monitor site speed. And I've heard him present at a high level, much higher than what you guys are going to hear here tonight, about how there's so many things that we can do to help our website. It's easy to blame it on web hosts, but there's always something that you can do on your site to improve your speed. So I'm going to hand over to Kervin.
Thank you, thank you. Let's see if I can get mic'd up here. Does that sound pretty good? Everybody can hear me okay? All right, no complaints. I don't have any video.
Yep, it just goes up there. It takes a second. Yep, there it is.
We getting it? All right, cool. A couple of housekeeping tips. I tweeted out the URL for these slides. So if you follow hashtag WPAZ, you should see a tweet from me. It has a link to these slides, and it's a Google presentation. So you visit those, and if you have a Google account, you can actually just copy the slides to your account. That way you can edit the notes, you can follow along, do whatever. I put a lot of notes in each slide. Well, I put a lot of notes in a couple of slides. So if you have questions as we follow along, please feel free to reference the slides or do whatever. I'm giving you guys all the materials that you need. It's just in that link. So Web Performance 101. I call it 101 not because I'm going to just give you guys a couple of tips and tricks and it's going to be real simple. I call it 101 because I want to start very basic. I actually want to take you guys all the way down. We'll take a look at a little bit of the networking that makes the internet work. And then we're going to build on top of that and take a look at what web page tests can do and tell us why our websites are fast or slow. Or tell us about our customer experience. How is an international customer different than a local customer? How is a mobile customer different than a desktop customer? And we're going to stay very, very focused in web page tests. We're only going to look at probably about 3 things, but they're going to tell you so much about your website. It'll be amazing. And then we've got some WordPress specific tips for you. So a lot of this talk is going to be reusable for any other website that you're working on. Joomla, Drupal, Windows sites. So lots of good information. With that, let's just dive right in. So first thing that needs to happen when you look up a website is DNS. So you have to convert the name into an IP address. So you take Facebook.com, you turn it into that IP address, and each DNS lookup takes you around 50 to 200 milliseconds. So 200 milliseconds is 1/5 of a second. So anyone know why this is important?
It loads.
Yes. How many domains do you reference in your average web page? Well, there's your domain. There's probably a www variant of your domain, and then there's Twitter, Facebook, Google Fonts. There's like API.Facebook or SDK or something, and then there's YouTube images. So you've got all of these domains, each one of them taking a 1/5 of a second or up to. So all of those lookups add a little bit of time to your page load. After your DNS query, you have TCP. So the way that the data is delivered over the internet is the web server and the browser will take whatever piece of data it is, like a JPEG, chop it up into a lot of little packets, and then send those over one by one. And in order for this to happen correctly, there has to be a session established first. So the browser basically says, "Hey server, I want to meet you." The server says, "Okay, cool, we're now talking." And that is called a TCP connection. handshake, whatever you want to call it. And this actually takes some time as well. So why does TCP take so long? Because when you're on the internet, you have to choose between getting it fast or getting it right. So getting it fast would be YouTube, Hulu, streaming NPR. You don't care if there's a pop or a squeak or a missing frame of video. You want it now, up to date. Getting it right is your web page. Because if you're missing a few characters out of your JavaScript, the whole page is going to blow up. So you need to have everything sent over exactly correctly. And that's what TCP does, is it ensures the delivery of data in order exactly identical to what was sent. And in order to make that happen, basically you establish that connection, that three-way handshake. Hey, I want to talk to you. Okay, let's talk. Cool, we're talking. So syn, synac, act. Those actually stand for synchronize and acknowledge, in case you're curious. Why is this important? Oh my God, why? Why is this guy up here talking like this? The length of that arrow is, well, it's the round trip is called your latency. So you and I talking right here, short latency. If I'm talking to someone in Japan, that's going to be a really long latency. It's going to take me a really long time to connect to that server in Japan. And when you get into actually exchanging data, where every single packet needs to be acknowledged, it takes even longer. So I take my JPEG, I chop it up into 100 little packets, and I send each one over the wire. And I have to wait for each single packet to be acknowledged. That time, whether it's 10 milliseconds or 100 milliseconds, really plays a big factor in how long it takes for that picture to arrive at the other end. Does that make sense? The other thing that can happen is you get packet loss. So if I'm sending, say, hey browser, here's packets 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, and it never got packet 4, then it will say, okay, I'm acknowledging packet 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. The server will kind of wait. I guess you never got 4. I should probably resend that. So that's when you get packet loss. There's a little timeout window, and then it will resend it. There's some congestion. This is why latency is a big deal. The way that you defeat latency is you put fewer packets on the wire. That's basically what's within your control. So this is where your compression kicks in. This is where you make smaller images, you gzip compress things, and you just generally make a lighter weight page. Kind of to give you a bigger picture, this is latency versus bandwidth. Latency is the amount of time it takes to start talking. Bandwidth kicks in once the conversation starts. So I imagine filling up a pool. You attach that garden hose to the wall, and you turn on the spigot. Bandwidth is the diameter of the hose. How much water is going to come out? Latency is the length of the hose. How long does it take before the water starts trickling? Okay. Let me put this together. This is an intimidating slide. It took me forever to figure it out. Some researchers ran a test where they took a website, a single website, and they fetched it over web page test, and they adjusted the bandwidth and latency conditions artificially. So this axis over here, the purple one, is the latency. So it starts down here at 0, and it goes all the way up to 200 milliseconds, so a fifth of a second. And then they adjusted the bandwidth. So down here in the corner, it's 10 megabits, and all the way over there by the blue corner, or the blue wall, is 1 megabit. And then the height of the bars is how long it took the web page to load. So you can see that 0 latency and 10 megabits loaded in slightly over 2 seconds, or around 2 seconds. But you dial up the latency, and now it loads in 7 seconds. So that had like about a 3x, a 3x detriment to the page just by changing the latency like that. Same web page, same bandwidth. You also see that bandwidth doesn't really matter past 1 megabit. 2, it matters a little bit, but after that, bandwidth doesn't matter. These are all roughly the same height except for the latency. That blue over there, that's also going to be your mobile customers. So 3G is about 1.5 megabits a second. And that blue is 1 and the red is 2. So your mobile customers are going to be right in there, over on that. They're going to be hugging that wall. So latency matters. Who are your high latency customers? Anyone have any idea?
People far away, further away.
That's right, your international customers. People who are further away from your server, not from you. And your mobile customers.
What about rural people who are far away from maybe a hub or a central point?
If they're in the United States, they're probably going to have really good latency compared to someone who is in Australia, who's having to go under that Pacific pipeline. This 200 milliseconds of latency, this is about the distance. This is going under the ocean. This is going to Australia or Singapore or Japan. Someone in the US, they're going to have 20 to 50 milliseconds of latency, even if they're rural, unless they're really, really rural. Unless they're on, like, speaker wire. And finally, there is also an SSL cost. So when you're referencing something over SSL, there is an SSL handshake that happens too. So the two servers are talking, they go, hey, I need to find the DNS for Facebook. Okay, I found it. Now I need to connect to Facebook. Let's do the three-way handshake. Cool. Crap, it's SSL. So Facebook sends over the SSL certificate, any intermediate certificates, and then, okay, let's talk some more and figure out a random key. Okay, now we can actually start talking web pages. So you have DNS, you have TCP, you have SSL, all that adds up. Call it 200 to 500 milliseconds. Just kind of ballpark numbers, 200 to 500 milliseconds for new connections, depending on how close they are, how fast the server is, if the DNS is cached or not, and if it's SSL. That's what I'm getting to with all of this, is you pay a penalty every time you connect to a new site. Let me show you what this looks like in web page test. This is, so the domain is kind of funny. Let me explain that real quick. Some people, I guess, buy domains at GoDaddy, and then for some reason they don't get them anymore, and that could be fraud, like credit card fraud or something. But we can't give them back to ICANN. So, hey, we got them for a year or whatever they were bought for. So that's like our pool of employee test domains. Yeah, there was one like Marijuana Life or something. That was a fun one. Yeah, there's a couple of good ones. You can ask for them too. You can say, I want a test domain and make it a good one, and they'll pick you a funny one. So we're requesting a CSS file, and it's local. So this is a server we've already connected to. So we've already paid the DNS. We've already paid the TCP connection. There is no SSL. And our time to first byte is 53 milliseconds. And this whole thing probably was delivered in one packet. That's why there's no content download. So 53 milliseconds to get this CSS file. That's pretty good. And let's take a look at an offsite reference. This is the same site. This is the same page load. I just picked a different element in the waterfall. This is going to Google for a font, and notice that we have a DNS lookup, 127 milliseconds, and an initial connection, that's that three-way handshake, that's 44 milliseconds, and then our time to first byte is 52. So 52 milliseconds, about the same, but we paid an additional 171 milliseconds just for the privilege of downloading that font from somebody else. We could have hosted that ourselves. So 171 milliseconds just for downloading that from Google. And these are the things you look for in web page tests, the initial connection and the DNS lookup. And there's also an SSL handshake as well. So that's kind of the end of the meaty part of the talk. I want to pause for a question break because I kind of went over a lot of stuff. Any questions?
You said that loading it from Google was slower than loading it from Skype.
Yes. Yes. Loading it from Google took 171 more milliseconds, at least in this one particular example. And I'll show you how to test that on your site. Any other questions? Okay.
Question.
Yes, sir.
That's a really small amount of time.
Yes. I will show you how it adds up.
I was just going to say,
Yeah.
so how is that extrapolated to where it actually...
Do you know how many requests it takes to draw your website? Okay. Most websites probably come in around 100. Some of the big ones come in around 900.
Oh, I mean the number of requests that it gets.
No.
Oh.
The number of requests of these requests that it
Oh.
takes in order to just display it in the browser.
Okay, which goes back to the package you were talking about.
Which-
the image loads.
Right. So if you have 50 or 60 of these requests and they all incur an extra fifth of a second, it adds up.
Compound interest.
Yeah,
This was just to show one font. That right there was just to show one font.
that's correct. So this is not WordPress specific. Like this is applicable to anything.
Another quick question. So it benefits self-hosting a font.
Yes.
Why is it lower cost on my site than
Because you do not. So if I'm connecting to your site, I've already looked up your domain name and I've already done the three-way handshake, so the TCP connection. And if your site's over SSL, I've already done the SSL negotiation. All I have to do is download the font. And if we're using HTTP 1.1 with pipelining, I just add it on to the request. For Google, you tell me to go fetch it from Google, I have to go look up who Google is. That may or may not be cached. And then I have to go do the three-way handshake with Google. So if I'm in Australia and Google has a local node in Australia on the edge, it might be faster then, might not be. I'll show you how to test all of that.
So are you saying that it would be against like CDNs and stuff like that, or using floating jQuery and stuff? Or maybe the idea would be a little
Personally, I am against that, especially since people don't pick one CDN. They do like 6 of them. They'll get their fonts here and their CSS there and their jQuery over here. And those are all extra connections. And we know every connection is DNS connection, maybe SSL. Again, I'll show you a way to test that. But I really want you to test that for yourself. I don't want to tell you what's right for your site. So that's me. I don't use CDNs, that kind of stuff, unless my entire site is on a CDN.
Yeah, I guess it's like well, it's common to load jQuery.
It's common, but is it right?
I guess if it's cached, though, it could possibly speak. I mean, applying cache because they've been lots of sites that seems to be.
That's the argument I've heard for Google Fonts,
Right.
is that it's oftentimes already cached in the client's browser because it's a widely recognized font.
If Droid Serif is a widely recognized font,
Right.
yeah, like it's the font that you're using, maybe, but it would have to be that exact URL, and I don't know how unique that URL, that WAF is.
I have it on Google.
And if you're using some like really off-the-wall font that, and how long does that font stay in cache for? So, there was a question over here. Okay. So, basically, what I did not want to do with the talk was come up here and just tell you, like, this is right and this is wrong. I want to kind of explain what's going on under the covers and then show you guys a little bit about web page tests. And you can test what's right and what's wrong. You make the smart decisions for your site. Demo time. Web page test. All the sites that I'm going to demo for you, all the tests that I've pre-run with notes, are on the notes for this slide. The mic is not doing any good, is it? Sorry. Sorry. So all the sites I'm going to show you are on the notes for this slide. Again, you get the slides from my tweet. When you go to web page test for the first time, you'll see a big input box, asks you for a URL, and then you'll see a button over there that says Start Test. It is as simple as that. I do want to show you the location picker, though. This lets you pick where you want to run the test from. The way web page test works is it actually gives you a dedicated browser. There's a virtual machine in every single one of these locations with a browser configured, waiting just for your test. It gives you like 3 minutes of time, and will load the web page for you, and it records absolutely everything. You can get packet captures out of this if you really want to. So with that said, you need to note that for every location, it has a limited set of browsers that it can use. So if you want to do a mobile test, then you have to go to this dullest one that supports Android and iOS. Otherwise, you can just pick, like maybe the Toronto one, but it only does IE. After you pick, then you pick your browser. There's some advanced settings down here. So you can pick your cable, DSL, etc. Now we've gone over this. The things that we learned from the networking part of it were there's a penalty for every single new connection, and your users are going to be basically high latency, low latency, high bandwidth, low bandwidth. So you can actually pick the bandwidth. So this 1.5 megabits, that's going to be right on that line between like the blue and the red blocks on that graph that we saw. And then there's much higher, like cable, Fios, whatever. You can pick 56K if you really want to see what your site looks like to someone on a low bandwidth connection. You can also pick mobile. So you can pick 3G, and you can pick 300 millisecond and 150 millisecond latency. So this is going to simulate what it's like for a mobile user. That 150 milliseconds, they're actively using their phone, the radio's on, it's going. But 300 milliseconds, they haven't used their phone in a while. This is the first time they've clicked on a link. It's got to actually turn on the radio, so it's going to take a while to get moving. So that's all I wanted to show you on this page. After you run the test, it takes a couple of minutes to actually run. It's going to give you the result page. Now these results are kept indefinitely, and you'll see there's an ID up here. You'll want to take note of that ID, bookmark it, put it in Notepad, Evernote, somewhere, and just kind of note what the test was. I tested my site on this day with these changes, whatever it was. The web page test is pretty good about telling you when and from which node and which network settings you chose, so that's pretty helpful. And we'll show you why later. You want to note all that because you can do a before and after comparison with web page tests. So you can test your site, change a couple things, test it again, and then actually overlay these videos on top of each other, do a side by side. So first thing, ignore the report card. Don't pay attention to the A's and F's and X's. You guys are going to know a whole lot more than that. Look at this table up here. This looks complex. It's actually not that bad. There's two lines, first view and repeat view. First view is someone who's never visited your site before, doesn't have anything in cache, has never looked up your domain. Repeat view is someone who visited your site already and just hit refresh. So they're pulling it up, all the caches are primed, they're your ideal customer, they're in the middle of browsing. And so you want to take a look, you kind of compare. First of all, you do look at these numbers, but you also compare first versus repeat and see how effective your caching is. Load time, how long does your site take to load? When did it first start rendering? So when did the user first see something draw in the browser? When did they think your page started becoming available? Speed index, this is a score of how available your page was above the fold. Aim for 4,000 or below. There's a link in the notes if you really want to get into it. Number of requests, number of bytes in. So again, fewer requests, fewer bytes in, fewer packets on the wire, less chance that latency is going to bite you. So if you see something just outrageous here, and I'll show you a site that is like 9 megs in size. It's outrageous. If you see something just really high there, then you know you've got a problem. This site is not too bad. It's a test site. It's just a WordPress Hello World site with a theme. It's not that bad. So this is pretty much what you look at. You see his requests, 48, and then when you hit refresh, 6. So 42 requests didn't have to happen. That's pretty good caching. And 1,000 kilobytes versus 174 kilobytes, we saved 800K. It's pretty good. So I'm not going to pick this site apart too much. I do want to show you the waterfall. So I told you there was going to be a couple of features we're looking at web page tests. The first was that report box. The second is the waterfall. Does this look intimidating to anyone, or is this pretty easy to read? Or yeah, you've seen this before, haven't you? Okay. So I'm going to go over this anyway, in case there's someone in the crowd who's hiding, not raising their hand, but secretly thinking they're the only one who thinks it's intimidating. It starts at the top and starts at 0, and then it shows all the requests it took to make your website, going all the way down to the last one. And it's just listing them in chronological order. And each request is color-coded by the amount of time spent in DNS lookup, the initial connection, that's that three-way handshake we talked about, the SSL negotiation, that's that certificate exchange and the key negotiation we talked about, the time to first byte, that's just the amount of time that you wait on the server before you get your information back. Content download, that's the amount of time that it takes just to download whatever you got once the server started talking. And then you'll see any error responses highlighted in yellow and red. And then you see these two vertical bars here, this purple one. This lets you know when all the elements in the page were loaded. So it lets you know the browser has basically said, okay, the document is ready to be drawn. Like I've got everything I need to start drawing this document. And then this stripe over here says, okay, I'm done drawing the document. Go ahead and load any ads, Ajax, anything like that. Go ahead and load all those other things. So those are the two kind of events you look for. This is, I've started drawing the page, and this is, I'm done. Go ahead and load the ads. And then you can kind of look in the middle. So one thing that stands out to me is all of the DNS time spent here. Like half a second looking up Facebook. And another half a second looking up Facebook again. You can read this. Like this is not hard to read once you actually look at it. You just look for the biggest swath of color, and you go, oh, I wonder what that is, and you click on it and you go, huh. So like this,
Image.
Yeah, it's an image. You actually, if you click on object, sometimes they'll actually show you which image. And you can look at the request and the response, so you can actually see all the server headers and everything. You see an amazing amount of information just from this page. You can see it only took a second and a half to download this. It's your call on whether or not you want to optimize this. So here's the exact same page, but this lets you know that this is cable modem, but I added some latency and packet loss. So you can see that it takes much longer to draw because it now takes 6 seconds to load instead of 2. So let me show you what this looks like when you actually compare these tests. So use this URL, and again, this is in the slide notes because there's no way I could find in web page tests to, like, there's no UI for this. You just have to know this URL, and then you just put the IDs together. So it's ID, comma, ID, and it will generate this page for you. Let me do this. Let me hit create video. This is pretty cool. So here's the first site, and then here's the site pretty much over a mobile, or in Australia, high latency.
Wow.
So, have you ever seen these types of videos before? There was a host out there who used to say, you know, come to our site, we'll make you 20% faster or something, and they would hook into web page tests. They'd have you enter your URL, and they'd hook into web page tests, and they'd generate some stats that show you how much faster you'd be, and they'd even like do a little video like that. So it was cool. They used it kind of as a marketing gimmick. So I don't know if you've ever seen this before. But this is how you do your before and after. So you take a test of your site today, and then whenever you install that new plugin, you switch to your new theme, you do whatever, you can run another test and just see. Just go ahead and compare those tests and see where you're at. And if you go back to where we were before, this actually lets you compare the waterfalls too. So you can kind of see where you're, you know, where these purple lines are hitting and where the blue lines are hitting. You can look at when the page started loading. It gives you all sorts of data analytics. So let's take a look. Oh yeah, you can also do this for mobile. I didn't really want to dig into this one. I just wanted to show you that they actually do have a Nexus 5 and an iOS 4 browser available for you to use. So this is what his site looks like on a Nexus 5. So I've got 2 left. We actually want to dig into these sites, and we'll do kind of a cooperative analysis here. This is a site called collegetimes.com, and they've got a bit of a high load time. They're loading in 9.78 seconds. The repeat view, it should be really fast. They're still loading in 5.6 seconds. We take a look at their bytes in. They're doing 3.2 megs. Their caching is pretty good because we're only doing 200K. We cut out over 200 requests for caching, so their caching is good. That's not the problem. Their speed index is really not that great on the first view, but it's okay on the repeat view. So what's the problem? Let's take a look at the waterfall. First thing that I noticed is that it's really long, and that this purple stripe is pretty far over. So let me show you kind of a shortcut to figuring out what's going on with your web page. Click Film Strip View. I love this tool. This is amazing. You actually can see how your page is loading in half-second increments, and you see that this red bar down here corresponds to the time index, and it slides over on the waterfall. You guys see that? So you see over here at 5.5 seconds, the site is at 0%, and then at 6 seconds, it's at 75%. So something happened, and the site just went blink, and it's completely available. So I'm going to drill into this further. So I'm going to go ahead and pick 0.1 seconds. And so this will generate a lot more thumbnails. So it's happening at 5.8 seconds, and it's still 75% complete, just blinks on. So let's get this. So you line it up with the very edge, and then that will line up with the red bar exactly like you need it. And then you scroll down and you look at what lines up with that red bar. And what's going on is they've got this script from Facebook that just finished loading, these two like boxes that failed, and then it loads this script again. It's the exact same script. And then as soon as that is done loading, right there where it touches, then the page lights up. So they need to take a look at whatever, it's called blocking. Why are they blocking for Facebook? And if you look at the repeat view, I wish they actually had repeat view in the film strip view. But if you take a look at the repeat view timestamp, it says that it took 5.7 seconds for the page to be fully loaded. So it's waiting for this, because this is the same time where it blinked into existence on the first view. Does everyone see how I got that? Is this something that would be useful for your website? Cool. Let me show you the last website I have. This is a site called Technorati, and they also have a problem. Their load time is 23 seconds. But on the repeat view, it's 4.8 seconds. So something's going on with that first view. Their speed index is an amazing 25,000. That's absolutely insane. On the repeat view, it's 4,000. That's dead in the center. I think median was 3,500 and average was 4,500 for a cable modem. So they're right in the middle. Their start render time is about this. It's good. So what's going on with them? Well, first of all, when their document is complete, they're at 6.7 megs. But when it's fully loaded, they're at 9.8 megs. So they're doing 3 extra megs of traffic after that onload event. So they've got 3 megs of like ads and other crap. I want to swear. You guys want a crap that I do not want on my browser loading after that. And not to disparage Technorati. I love Technorati and everything, but I visit them with ad blocks. And yeah, their caching is good because when you hit it again, it's only 200K. So what's going on with them? Whoa, what do we notice here? Lots of yellow. And if you dig into it, you'll find out that it's a lot of ads. If you dig into these yellows, you'll find out lots of ads and trackers and that kind of stuff. So let's take a look at the film strip view. This actually, they're loading 1.5 seconds. It's not bad. As a user, I would think, hey, the site's actually loading. And then at 3 seconds, I can start reading content. And then it looks like there's some sort of slider or something. Oh, okay, here it is. So watch what happens. We're at 85%. Let's scroll over, and now we're at 65%. Scroll over. Now we're at 73%. Now we're at 60%. 59%. So what's going on is their slider is confusing Google's measurement of page progress. So beware of that. If you guys have some sort of a slider or like a popover that's like, hey, join our mailing list, like us on Facebook, that will confuse the progress meter. And And if you go all the way down to the bottom, you can actually see this happen, where it goes up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, in terms of visual progress. So I'm not seeing anything here that's blocking, just a bunch of requests. And what do we know about requests? The more you have, longer it takes, because each new request incurs penalties of DNS, TCP, and SSL, if it's an SSL request. And they have 369 requests, 138 even on a refresh.
Look at the 725 too on the full.
Yeah, look at that. So let's see where these requests are coming from. Look at that, 8%. They're only hosting 8% of their website. The rest of their website is being hosted in the cloud. So if they were to call their host and say, hey, my website's slow, I'd go, well, 8% of it's really fast. You need to go check with the other, 15 pages of people here. They're the ones responsible for 92% of your website by request. By bytes, they're hosting 50% of their site. So someone asked the question over here of why does 200 milliseconds matter? It matters because people do this, and then their site takes 23 seconds to load. Now, your browser can do multiple connections at a time. It will do like 6 connections at a time, or multiple connections to the same domain, or whatever it is. So if you need to connect off-site, that's fine, because that 200 milliseconds, that might actually kind of get rolled up because there's some parallel processing going on. This is you're gonna feel this.
Why is it so crazy?
Yeah, this is fun. So the other thing that they had was 9 megs of content, and what you can do is you can get a content breakdown on web page tests. So everyone sees that that I clicked domains and content breakdown. Those are the 2 other tools, and that tells you that your biggest content here is images. So if they got rid of all of their images, their website would still be 4.5 megs. But that's where I would start. I would start by saying you need to get rid of some images. One thing to note, web page tests, if you have an autoplay video, web page tests will report a very high content download, because it will actually play and download the video.
Can you break down other any further, just because they have such a large other?
I don't know, honestly. That might be, it's not going to be iframes. For them, I know like crossdomain.xml is in that. I would have to look.
Do they provide a way to check what a performance test would look like with ad block versus?
That's a very good question. I was going to try to set that up, but it's actually really kind of difficult to do. It's possible, but it's difficult. So what you can do is you go in here and you type in, or you go into block, and you can block requests containing some string, or you can go into SPLF and you can block domains.
So you have to know all the ad servers to block them.
Yeah. So you could probably just go to the domains list here and just copy and paste this list, and then put it in SPLF, and then of course just take out Technorati, and then try that, and then you get the 2 tests, put them together, side-by-side video. So that's what I've got on web page tests for you guys. Here's just to kind of reiterate, just to reinforce. Top 10 tips: ignore the scorecard. Look at load time versus first render. So load time tells you how quickly it starts becoming available. First render tells you when it starts becoming available. Load time is how long the little spinny wheel in the browser is spinning. Speed index, that is just a measure of how much of the how quickly the above the fold page became visible and interactive to the user. Look at requests and bytes in. You want lower on both of them, especially for mobile and international customers. Look at first view versus repeat view. That tells you how many caching is. You can check your waterfall for slow items. Just look for big blocks of color. You can look for blocking items. Use the film strip view for that. Look for content by domain. Look for content breakdown. Content by domain, that will tell you how many domains you're contacting and who's hosting your site, if it's you or the cloud. Content breakdown, that shows you, if you've got 10 megs of stuff, that will show you where it's all at. And then video. I showed you guys how to use the video comparison. So now you can actually take before and after on your website and do a comparison and see what's changed. So I got a couple of WordPress specific solutions for you guys now that you've kind of hung in there and we've gotten through all of the meaty stuff. Here's the pointy clicky stuff for WordPress. Here's the easy stuff. So you want to get a good theme. There's a couple ways to go about this. There's a website called themelogger.com. They actually get themes and they run them through Google Page Insights and they'll publish the results. And it's very similar to what web page tests would recommend you do with a theme. You can also check the reviews for a theme. You can take a demo page for a theme, run it through web page tests, and see if you like what it says. And you can also pay a developer to make it faster. That's not me. Don't ask me. I'm not out here to get a job. There's a lot of other developers in our local community. Probably Carol would be the one to help find someone for you. And then use an adaptive theme. So an adaptive theme would be I have one theme for desktop and I have one theme for mobile. My mobile theme loads up a lot fewer images, no social buttons, lighter weight CSS, no scripts, that kind of thing. WP Touch is good for this. For you designer types out there and developer types, there's actually a jQuery plugin called Adaptive Images that will resize images for your screen size. And so it can actually load smaller images, fewer packets, faster load time for your mobile customers. So there's instructions on how to install that in WordPress. It's unfortunately not a plugin due to a licensing issue, but I've got the instructions in the slide notes. Reduce your social button usage. So don't use the official buttons, use like the Jetpack default buttons. Whenever you see the buttons that pull in the number of +1s or likes or faves or whatever, that's making these external calls. External calls are expensive. So just use the default buttons. Reduce where they appear. Maybe they only have to appear in the posts and not on every page. Reduce which networks you link to. Most people know where their bread's buttered, so they only link to Twitter and Pinterest, and that's it. They don't need to link to the other 400. Like some of those plugins, they advertise how many networks they can link to. Don't do that. And check out some lazy load solutions. Socialite is pretty popular. So I've got a link to that in there. There's actually a WordPress plugin for that. Just drop in. Make smaller and fewer requests. This is where you can combine and identify scripts. Turn on compression. Your host usually does this for you. Send caching headers. This will help your repeat view be faster. You'll see that. So you're downloading fewer things, and your page will render faster on a reload. Compress your images, and try lazy loading your images. These are plugins. You just turn them on. You click a button. It's really easy. I've got the links in there. WordPress makes this stuff so easy. With all that said, the power to make your website faster is yours. Time for questions. Any questions? Anything I can help you? Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I'm still kind of a newbie. On that pie chart with all the slivers, are those all things that we put on our website ourselves, or are those things that are latching onto our website?
Generally, what happens is you'll add a Twitter button, right? You'll add like Twitter, Google Plus, and Facebook, and then those are extra links. And sometimes those will reference out to other things, like they'll reference out to one or two other Twitter properties. I know if you add like a YouTube video, there's a request for a YouTube screenshot that's on a different domain, and then there might be a request for one or two other things. So it starts by you adding something, and then it might multiply a little bit. Any other questions?
Another reason not to get plugin happy.
Right, and now that you know how to test, you can make sure you're making smart choices with your plugins.
And all you have to do is deactivate the plugin
Right.
to test, right?
Well, yeah, you would take the before test, activate the plugin, take the after test, and then compare. And it's really easy. It just takes probably 2 or 3 minutes to actually run the test. So now you have a definitive way to know if that plugin is really hurting your load time or not. And I work for a host, so I personally am very data driven. I would love it if a customer sent me a web page test comparison and said, no, it's not, it's your problem, here's my data. So, use this as your hammer when you're dealing with support. If you have a plugin author that you're dealing with, or you have a host or something, actually run the tests and send it back to them. And say, no, I think it's your problem, or no, I think it's a problem with this, here's my data. Hopefully that's helpful to someone.
Makes it easy to get the data.
Yeah, and it stays up there forever. I found tests that I ran last year, and they're still out there. So there's an option. If you are curious, you can make it private. There is an option in here to make it private. Keep just private. So there's all sorts of stuff you can do. You can check out the scripting language if you want. That will let you log into your WordPress admin and do a web page test in your admin if you want. It will let you bypass Cloudflare because it will let you set your host and DNS separate from what the actual name servers are. So it lets you do all kinds of cool stuff. Didn't want to go too advanced. What's up?
So a couple questions. One is, do you have any other tools, websites like this that you recommend? Or this seems pretty comprehensive. Any other website testing tools that you use?
This is pretty much it for this level of detail. If you were going to set up something yourself, there's
plugins that you add.
Yep. Other question.
Query Monitor.
Query Monitor is fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I like to tell people is, your host is responsible generally for like this little green part. That's where your plugins and stuff come in. Is that tiny little green part there? That time to first byte on your PHP page when WordPress is generating the page. All of these other requests, your host may be hosting some of those. They may not be. Those might be Twitter. Those might be Google+. Those might be YouTube. Those might be Facebook. Those might be ads. Those might just be, 10 megabyte images that you uploaded, and WordPress let you do it. And now you're referencing them, and you wonder why they're slow. That might be because you configured your site in a way that requires 800 and something requests to draw. So when you go and talk to your host and you say, my plugin, whatever, won't work, or you need to make your server faster, this is pretty much the knob that they can turn. Right there is that first little sliver. And sometimes that is long. Sometimes that is 2 seconds by itself. But if you have a site that's loading in 15 seconds, you have more power over your site speed than they do.
The second half of that question was, do you prefer a specific WordPress caching plugin? The one you pick over another?
No, I don't prefer any specific caching plugin. Disclaimer is I work on the managed WordPress product, and we use Varnish, and we manage all of the caching through Varnish. So we actually block caching plugins because we do all of it that way. I can talk to you more about that offline. Okay, is that it? Anything else? All right, I will turn it back over to Carolyn. Thank you.
All right, awesome. That was pretty amazing to see so many different things. I hadn't seen the video play, so I haven't dove in as far as you did, so that was just so cool. Now what we usually do is we do Jeremy, if you want to go ahead and come and get set up for the Fun Awesome. So now what we usually do is just tips and tricks. So this is a time where if you have something that you've found in the past month that you want to share, that you heard about, or let's say that you're looking for a solution and you're looking for that perfect plugin that does this, and you just haven't found it. This is kind of just like a shout time of, you know, what do you need or what would you like to share? So does anyone have any tips or tricks? Yes.
I have a need.
A need. Okay.
Unless anybody else has one.
Sure.
It's a burning need. I'm using Infusionsoft and putting their code on the site. Skews all the tables. First of all, I found a workaround in just using the table or the template that has no header and no footer, and the tables show correctly at that point, but there's no header or footer. I would like to have a header in there so it doesn't have the white bar across the top of it. Anything?
I would say Infusionsoft support.
I've already talked to them. They can't get it. They don't have any words.
Where's Joe? Joe Manna. He's not here. Bummer.
The only other thing that I was thinking was maybe putting an image in the template and referencing that to see if that, and I hadn't done that yet. So I was thinking about that on the way over here. So
Okay.
that might work. I don't know.
Of course, that would load. Yeah, I don't know. Any other? Help me, everyone. This is a group thing. This is a group exercise.
No, I have no idea. I don't really understand what you're talking about, but if you want to show me after the meetup, then I'd be happy to take a look and try and understand.
All right. Cool. All right. Any other? If you have any suggestions,
Question: has anybody else been hit with your WordPress site an increase in spam? Sorry, about 2 weeks ago, or is it just me?
increase in spam. I noticed an increase in brute force attacks about 2 weeks ago. Brute force attempts, like a huge amount.
It
Yeah.
definitely seems to come in waves, and making sure you're using things like Kismet, and there are a couple of other solutions out there that'll help you block that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Keep an eye on it.
Just wondering if it was something I did or whether.
No.
No, it's not anything you did.
2 weeks ago, because before that was nothing, like over like 600.
So bots just suddenly discovered your site exists.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I noticed a lot of brute force happening starting about 2 weeks ago, attempts. So, yeah. So,
Not anybody, I think it's not.
I agree. My host actually locked me out of my admin for 36 hours straight.
really? Just recently?
Yeah, it was to protect me, but it was really
Stop protecting me. Yeah. Okay, so it's not just you. There's been a lot of activity out. You've been hit too. Yeah. Yeah, I was. Right, exactly. It's like, well, in the whole notifications, I've got Security is what I use. There's all different kinds of plugins. That's a different topic for a different day. But to notify or not to notify is the question. And of course, when you get hit really hard, then you're like mad at yourself. Why do I get all these notifications? Although I think there's kind of a happy medium, because I kind of like to know when something happens, because I want to then be able to, okay, I want to make sure all my plugins are updated. I want to make sure, so I will, go in and just make sure and double check that site. When I start seeing those, I'll go in and just kind of do a little TLC to that site, make sure everything's updated and everything.
So in addition to that is iTheme Security just made an update that allows you to get the daily digest of things rather than
Then the one, that is so nice.
Which when we had iThemes on a bunch of sites that we were adminning, we were hit all the time with those emails.
Well, and
daily digest.
And then what I do is I start ignoring them.
Yeah.
Which is like, okay, that's not helpful.
Yeah, they're still important. There's still something to pay attention to.
two things that assist with that. One is HT access. You can lock it down to only certain IP addresses to hit the admin page. The other thing is remove the admin page, so it's not just /wp. You redirect that, and then
there's a lot of different security type stuff, and I think security actually will help with some of that and make that very user-friendly to be able to do some of those things.
I posted on the Meetup page a month ago or so how to block out brute force attacks.
Yeah. Any other tips or tricks? Needs, wants?
WordPress 4.0 is out.
4.0 is out.
Make sure you update.
Anyone using it yet? We haven't updated yet. We're waiting.
Yeah.
Not the major versions.
Back up your site.
Back up your site before you upgrade it.
Has anyone experienced or heard of any issues with anyone upgrading?
I had one issue, but it was from a client who had a listing. And it was the whole thing was compatible. So once I had to
I tested an update on one of my sites, and it actually was throwing an error. So.
Nice to hear about that. We really haven't started testing the updates yet.
I updated one site because I thought this was a pretty safe update, and that one worked fine. And then one, while I was in staging, I decided to test the update just for fun, and it threw an error. So then I was like, "Oh, okay, good thing I didn't go crazy updating all my sites yet." So I'll have to figure out that one out. But
I usually wait just a little bit on the major releases, not on the point releases. You always want to do point releases immediately, but.
So are those phishing emails that you're getting?
What?
Are those phishing emails that I'm getting?
Saying that you've automatically.
Auto updated.
I don't know. That's interesting because. I mean, am I wrong? They don't auto update the major ones, do they?
read most of it.
It may be your host.
Yeah.
They do.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Okay, WP Engine is not. Well, not this soon. They will eventually, but. All right. I also saw a hand go up over here. Yes.
Suggestion for a visitor. So on my blog site, I want video link and also audio like podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So it was recommended that I do library, but I'm wondering like if you guys should just go with citizen, because that way it's up as far as storage and is any thoughts on that?
My podcasting and audio guys.
I use Blueberry on mine. She's right though. It does. You have to have the podcast hosted on your site. But podcasts generally, I mean, if you do them right, they're audio and they have to be very high quality. So they're usually not that good. So you have to be, I guess, if you have thousands of downloading it. I have not used those since
Blueberry, right? Is that what it?
Yeah, it's spelled weird.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too for the audio stuff.
It's good. It gives you its own analytics for your podcast. Does a bunch of other stuff. Puts it in like.
Okay. Cool. I have a. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask kind of a new question. When it gets updated to a new version of WordPress, when you say check it, are you just checking all the plugins to make sure they're still working? Like, how did you spot an error? Or is there some test running, or you just check the plugin?
On mine, in the admin screen, after I clicked update, an error showed up at the top of the admin screen, and then every single page I clicked on the admin side, that error was just sitting there at the top. So I think there was a plugin that's probably using an outdated function in WordPress that.
Alert you, so you don't have to.
No.
You manually check it all my plugins to make sure they work.
No, I mean that one happened too because it was doing something wrong, but it doesn't always alert you. I mean, something could just be broken on your site, something's not loading properly or whatever. I mean, it's kind of a difficult question. It's like saying what happens to a car when it breaks down or something. I mean, there's like a million different scenarios that can happen to show you like something.
I was just wondering if the people using WordPress now have like a pattern of what they do to make sure the website all still working after they move to a new version of WordPress. like a pattern you go through what you're checking to make sure the site is.
I try to make sure all the pages load.
Yeah.
Make sure all images load. I don't have any.
Yeah, just go to the home page and then start clicking around. The front end's the most important. If something is a little bit goofy on the back end, then that should make your ears perk up and kind of be on alert. But the front end is working really great, then that's the most important for visitors.
Right. Yeah. If you've got something like a calendar, if you've got a special feature or functionality on your site, you'll want to go and make sure that that functionality still works.
Have you used WordFence at all for your plugins?
WordFence is another one I hear a lot about on security, but I don't know anything
And
about
that
it.
gives you the one saying like your plugins aren't working, and then you get an actual email update. So if there's any changes to those files, that's just a plugin called WordFence. It's been okay so far.
I was going to give one little tip that I found. I know I could get tomatoes thrown at me by mentioning Jetpack because not everyone is a fan of Jetpack. However, Jetpack just added this new feature that, have you ever seen those themes that have a portfolio piece to it? It uses a portfolio custom post type. And so you choose a theme because this theme it handles portfolios really well because it's using this portfolio custom post type. Now Jetpack has, and I can't remember what it's called, if anyone's in here and remembers what that was called, but they now have a part of Jetpack is a portfolio feature that if you enable it, it will then handle that for you so you don't have to rely on it with your themes. I've actually been in a situation where I've picked a theme before because of that, which, as Kurt just outlined, there are far better reasons to pick a theme than because it does what I want it to do. Well, I mean, actually, it's not like that's a bad reason to pick it. But if we can do that through Jetpack, then we can pick themes for far better reasons. Better page load, not as many requests, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, check it out. Do you see it in there? I can't remember the name of it. If you just...
I thought it was just custom content types.
Is it custom content types?
Yeah.
Is it just called custom post type?
Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, the custom post type now is right there in Jetpack. Kind of cool. Kind of neat feature.
Now, Carol, I know you said people were throwing tomatoes at you because of Jetpack.
I know. There's some people that like it.
But Jetpack, it used to be because it was so loaded.
Uh-huh.
But now they give you the ability to just add the features you want. I wonder if that helps.
So the issue a lot of people still have with Jetpack is the fact that it still auto-activates some things. There's a lot of debate on that.
But you can
they're
go and turn
doing a
everything
lot of
off.
really awesome things.
Yeah, you have to turn. But that's still the pain. And then like that, when she was saying the custom post type one, they had a little alert when Jetpack updated when they added that, and it said this one's been activated for you, and it was already activated. And it didn't have the box checked, so it has custom post types, but then it only adds one type of custom post type for you automatically, and so you can add additional ones. But that custom post type I don't think is checked automatically, but the custom post type feature, or whatever they call each little individual item, was automatically
select
activated.
all and say deactivate everything. That's what I always do.
Yeah, that's the good thing is now you can do that auto select, because it used to have to be individually. You click each one and deactivate, and now you can do with a checkbox. You can say select all.
So
And
then
that's
select them all,
quicker.
deactivate everything, just go after.
True. Yeah, that is a quick way at least.
And I wonder if it's still how much it still loads your website.
Yeah, I was going to say, everyone used to talk about the bloat that it had.
And it's not about the front end, it's about stuff on the back end when you're trying to access stuff. But the debate goes on, and they are going to continue doing it that way. There's been a lot of discussion from the core developers. So
yeah.
So if you do custom post types, it adds a feature that just says portfolio projects, and you get name.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's
what I was talking about. That's my tip.
portfolio.
Which is kind of cool. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of websites that need that. So, all right. So our next presentation is basically it's just kind of plug-in review, a quick plug-in. I wasn't here last time. We usually try and do. Someone in the room says, I'm interested in seeing this plugin demoed, and then we have someone else in the room, could be same said person, who agrees to actually prepare a little demo. not a formal presentation, but just kind of show how this works. How does this work? I was here last week or last month, and we kind of just didn't get that done. And so I asked Jeremy to come in and do Font Awesome and kind of show a little bit of stuff on Font Awesome. He's got a plugin on the repo that works with that. So we're going to show that. Then as soon as he's done, we're going to get back on track, and we're going to talk about, and we're going to decide which plugin you guys want to see demoed next time, and we're going to hopefully get that going next time. So Jeremy, my business partner, and I guess you could tell a little bit more about yourself if you want.
How much time?
Where are we? It's 7:52. Let's go till 8:20. So you can have 20 to 30 minutes. Mm-hmm.
Speak really fast.
Do you remember? Oh, it doesn't have to be that long. It's not a super complex topics. So I'm Jeremy. I'm a WordPress developer, pretty much, and I had been with a couple different companies, kind of helping people with WordPress sites and building them, and currently it's been about 6 or 7 months now. Carol and I have been running Free Up Web Studio, so that's my main gig, and so I'll leave it at that. So I was going to talk about Font Awesome, my plugin Font Awesome More icons, and to start out, what that is it's basically a set of font icons. And so who can kind of tell us what are font icons? Anybody? Good?
The character set, like a font that instead of letters replaces it with other vectors, images.
Images, right? So why is that cool?
Scale. Retina.
Scale, and what did you say?
Of different languages and emoticons.
Yeah, it's like emoticons and stuff like that. And it's basically like the old school, what do they call it, dingbat or webdings or whatever. You know, everyone knows that font, right? And
Wingdings.
yeah, webdings or dingbats or whatever they used to be called. And so we used to play with that, you know, in Microsoft Word or whatever back in the early days. And there were a bunch of pictures instead of letters, but it was still a font that you chose from the little font drop-down. So that's the precursor to what these are on the web. So font icons have been getting really popular lately. So there's a lot of icon sets out there now. A really popular one, if your theme uses Bootstrap, Twitter Bootstrap, that uses glyph icons. And so here's a bunch of icons that you can get through, if your theme is already using Bootstrap, you probably have all of these available to you. But that's one example. So Twitter Bootstrap uses glyph icons. WordPress itself, starting with 3.8 or 3.9, 3.8, there it is. So WordPress itself in 3.8 has its own official icon font set now. And so all of the icons on the back end in WordPress and the admin screens, here's all the icons they use on the admin screens, and that is now, it used to be images, and then in 3.8 they changed it to font icons. So they have their own, and they call theirs dash icons. So dash icons is the font set that WordPress uses just for WordPress. And here they all are. So there's a bunch of icon sets available now, and so Font Awesome is another icon, font icon set that was made for Twitter Bootstrap. So if you didn't want to use the built-in icon set for Twitter Bootstrap, you can use Font Awesome. But Font Awesome it's independent of Twitter Bootstrap. So you don't really need to know all the technical details about that, but it was made to replace the icons that were in Twitter Bootstrap, which I think Font Awesome is a lot better than the ones built into Bootstrap anyways. So they have a pretty good definition here. They're defining what Font Awesome is, but it really defines all font icons. And so they said it gives you scalable vector icons that can instantly be customized. Size, color, drop shadow, and anything that can be done with the power of CSS. So that's where they're really useful. For example, if you had if you were using images for everything, and say you have a little Facebook icon or anything like that, if you wanted to change the color of that, or you wanted to do something cool with it when people put their mouse over it, you would have to be a Photoshop expert to manipulate that image to make it some other version of it, and then save that in the right size and everything, and then load that on your website. And then with CSS, you just have to say when they hover over this, then show this other image. And so it was really tedious, and it was kind of a pain. But now, since CSS is getting pretty advanced, since CSS 3 and all of that, there's a lot of cool things we can do with CSS that now with these font icons, we can use the
little icon instead and just use CSS to do whatever we want with that icon. Make it bigger, make it smaller, just like you do with font sizes, any letter. Or you can change colors, all that kind of fun stuff. So let's do a quick little test on Twitter, because Twitter uses their icon set. They have their own, even though they make Bootstrap as well. So we're going to take this little Twitter icon, and so I inspect element on that. And so you don't have to know all the details of that, but basically here's the CSS for that little icon right there. And that's a font icon. It's not a graphic. So this is just to give us an example of why font icons are useful and neat. So we're going to make that really big. So right here, instead of 21 pixels, we're going to make it jump up, boom, 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 boom. See, and so we can make it as big as we want. And you can't do that with standard images. It starts to get blurry really quick and ugly. So that's a font icon. It goes, infinity. It can just scale infinity because it's an icon. Icon like the letter I or the letter F on any font. Sorry, any font you have, you can make it big as small as you want. It doesn't get pixelated and that kind of stuff because it's not an image. So font icons are cool like that. And another thing, since it's CSS, we just change the size there. We can also just change the color. So instead of that, we'll make it red. Now it's red. And it's that easy. You can start changing the colors. With CSS, you can start manipulating these icons in a really neat way. Another little thing we can do is let's add, so when you hover, so from CSS, we're adding a hover effect, so we'll change the color to orange when you hover over it. So now you hover, boom, it turns on. So all these cool tricks we can do just with CSS. Anything you can do with CSS, you can apply it to these images. So that's really cool. So that's why font icons are wonderful. Any questions so far about font icons and why they're great? All right. So now to Font Awesome. So my plugin, what it is Font Awesome came out a while ago, and it keeps coming up with new versions. There was a bunch of icons that were left out of Font Awesome that someone else started a separate project called Font Awesome More. And on Font Awesome More, basically it took Font Awesome and added a bunch of extra icons. Icons like WordPress. The WordPress icon is not in Font Awesome, but Font Awesome More added it. And PayPal icon. That wasn't in Font Awesome. So ones like that we would really want to use that are really popular, Font Awesome More project added those. So in WordPress, I came up with a plugin. There's already a plugin for Font Awesome to include these icons in WordPress. So I created a plugin because I wanted Font Awesome More icon set in WordPress, and one didn't exist. So I just went out and built one. So here on the WordPress repo, here is the Font Awesome More icons plugin that I built. You can see here in the graphic, those are a sample of all icons that come with Font Awesome More that you would get in my plugin that you don't get with the standard Font Awesome plugin. So you can see there's a lot of cool ones in there. There's all the browser ones, Chrome, Firefox, IE, Amazon, Bing, Evernote, all those icons, Yelp, all those WordPress, there's WordPress there, there's a Windows icon. So I would say the majority of those are not in Font Awesome. So Font Awesome itself keeps updating, and they keep adding more and more icons all the time. So they're up to version 4.2 now. And so more and more plugins are constantly added to it as people request them. So here's my plugin on the repo, and so here's a list of the plugin or some of the icons. I made a page with all of the icons that you get. This is a little bit outdated because Font Awesome keeps updating, and so they've added some of these now, and I haven't come up with a new list to distinguish which ones are part of Font Awesome and which ones are extras that you would get with my plugin. I'll do that later at some future time. Okay, so that's a description of the plugin itself. So let's go in and let's start playing with the plugin. I already have it installed on my website here. So let's create a new post, and let's go to here I talk about how to use it. Let's look at that really quick. So how you use font icons, there's a couple ways to do it. Font Awesome itself, like I said, it's just this independent thing. It's for all web developers. It has nothing to do with WordPress. Font Awesome is just an icon set that's out there. And my plugin and other plugins that work with Font Awesome add that icon set to WordPress and then give you a way to output it easily without having to know all of the code. But let's first look at Font Awesome itself and look at their examples. So this is their examples. This is how they do it is straight HTML. That's how you add the icons to your site. So we don't want to get too technical, but this is an example of how they add. See this little camera icon up here? This is the HTML code that they use right there to get that little icon. So it's just the, I is typically, it used to be for italics, but they kind of hijacked it for this, and so you just do a little I HTML tag, and then you put the class, and then you put in the item that you want. So since we're in WordPress, shortcodes are really popular, so I used shortcodes to make it a little bit easier for people. So you can, once you have my plugin installed, you can anywhere on your site, in the theme, in a widget, on the page, you can use straight HTML code and do anything you want. You can use Font Awesome just as it's typically used, just using straight HTML. And so here's some examples of how you would use it with HTML. Let me go to that same page on my website, because then you can actually load the icons themselves and see what it looks like with the example, because WordPress.org, where the plugin is hosted, obviously they don't have Font Awesome installed, so I can't make the plugin show up here. So here, let's look at those same examples. Okay, so here's the HTML examples, and then, oh, never mind, this is my staging site. I don't have it set up perfectly here either. Okay, but anyways, we'll go down to the shortcode option, which is what we'll use. So once my plugin's installed, what you can do is make it a little bit easier. With the shortcode, all you have to do is start the shortcode, and this is in the content area, and we'll do it here in a second. But you just put icon, and then you say name equals, and then whatever icon you want to show up. And then I'll create all that HTML code for you. So it makes it a little bit easier. And so there's a lot of options in Font Awesome, and so there you can manipulate the size, and then I've added a couple little extra items that aren't part of Font Awesome itself, but I put in my plugin, I added them like a title tag. So that way, if you hover over an icon, a little chunk of text will show up. Kind of like the alt tags used to do back in the day for images, and how we use those for images still. Other elements on the page. Since these aren't actual images, they're fonts, then we use the title tag. So there's a couple examples of what the shortcode would look like. So let's play with this a little bit. So let's just create a brand new post. We'll say font icons are cool, and then what we'll do is let's do what icon do we want to do? So we just started out the the little shortcode bracket and then the word icon. That makes it so that my plugin will take over once it sees that icon part, and then we'll put the name of the icon we want to use. Let's do, how about WordPress? WordPress. All right, we'll start with WordPress. We can do Reddit too. So we'll start with WordPress. That's it right there. You could close it right there, and that will be it. But that'll be a little bit smaller because it'll be the default font size that's on my font or on my website. So it'll be basically as small as these little icons are. So we'll make the size, we'll do equals 3x. We'll make it 3 times as big. So let's go ahead and publish that. And then we'll view the post. And there it is. WordPress icon is there. So now because we can get the WordPress icon there, as I said, since it's CSS, I'm not going to go in and edit my theme manually. I can just edit the CSS right here just for demonstration purposes. But if we wanted the icon to change permanently, we could do all kinds of fun stuff. But here's the icon, so we can there we can change the color, to make it.
That'd be blue, right?
Yeah, let me go. Oops, sorry. I don't know what the actual WordPress hex code is, but we'll make that blue, which is very ugly.
Lori used to know it.
I can probably look it up on WordPress.org pretty quick somewhere. It's not blue here. It's gray, but yeah. So so there it is. So now with CSS, we could do whatever fun stuff we wanted. We can also, like I said, I put an option in there for the title tag, so we can say title equals WordPress, and so update the page with that.
So they're not that searchable.
Did you say you could add a color there?
No, I don't have the color option built in there. You just have to do it with CSS, and that's mostly because we don't want yeah, it'd be kind of inline styles and stuff. That part of that, but also too that there's kind of a fine line with this, where I'm trying to get Font Awesome more icons into WordPress, and it's up to them to use font icons however they want. But I want it to match their theme and that kind of stuff. And so if we're trying to make it easy for people that didn't design the theme itself, they might start just putting in whatever kind of random colors because it's too easy to do. And then really the theme should be kind of deciding that. So. Sure.
It is 217.
Oh, hold on. Let me refresh with the title tag part, and then I'll get that. Okay. So color is 217.
59. Letter B is in boy.
There we go.
That looks
You
like
want
it.
to do a hover to the orange?
Is that what WordPress does? Do they hover to orange?
No, it's a blue, orange, and a charcoal gray.
Oh, and charcoal gray. Okay, so let's go ahead and add this. We'll do one hover. So what's that? Orange or whichever?
That's D is in dog,
Uh-huh.
5, 4, E is in elephant, 21.
Okay. Okay, so now it's blue, and then we hover over, and nothing. Did I mess that up? Hover. I don't know. I must have messed something up there. Worked on the Twitter side. This one's not working.
It's because my style is overriding that class.
Is it? I don't know. It's not crossed out. Let me try putting an important declaration on there and see if that helps. But I don't know. That was it. All right. So yeah. So now it's orange. And you hover and see when I popped over, now it says WordPress there. That was the title equals WordPress there. So I mean, I don't know if there's anything else you guys are curious about, or if you want to get any crazier with this, but that's kind of just a general introduction. Are there any developers in here? Yeah. So if you, this project is on GitHub too, my plugin, and I would actually love some help with it because Carol's like a slave driver, and so I can never get around to updating the plugin. So I want to put Font Awesome had a big update to 4.0, which broke all backwards compatibility with Font Awesome. So I'm in a weird situation to where if I update my plugin to 4.0, it breaks for everybody. And so I've kind of figured out a little trick I can do there that will help a little bit. But also on top of that, WordPress 3.9 came out first, and that broke. There used to be a little drop-down arrow here, to where just like this drop-down arrow, there used to be a little drop-down here. You could click it, and then you could select whatever icon you wanted, and it would insert the show code for you. That broke with 3.9 because they redid a bunch of their tiny MCD media stuff here. So that broke, and then so I've had a lot of things hit me all at once, where it's like I kind of have to rethink a couple things with making my plugin work. So I would love to get it updated to the latest version of Font Awesome, and add maybe a button or something back here. But so I put it on GitHub, but I haven't advertised that to anybody yet. So you guys are the first to know that it's even on there. But yeah, I'd love to have some help. Want to help out.
Are your fonts? Is it in a font file somewhere in your plugin?
So
Where does it get the font? Icon font?
So, I mean, I feel a little bit embarrassed now after his presentation, but it's pulling from a CDN.
This is drama.
So yeah, it's pulling from a CDN, so that I don't have to load that onto there. I typically try and make my plugins or anything I do like that a little bit lightweight for the person using it, and I try not to load a lot of resources to their server if they're at bandwidth. stuff that they have to deal with.
I have one that does font icon. You're able to go to, ICO Moon.
What is that?
ICOmoon.io. It's just a bunch of font icons that you put together. You pick the ones you want, and it creates its own
Font effect, yeah.
So you can do custom.
Yeah, and I thought of doing that with mine too, and I might do that in the future to make it, because I actually have some cool ideas of easy ways to make this really user-friendly for people, so they don't have to worry about the short codes, and they can find whatever icon they want really quickly. And so I'd love to have some other developers help me with that. But I think the easiest thing, instead of people picking the font icon sets that they want and that kind of thing, my idea is you just have a little button right here that was for, insert icon. You click it, and then the little window that pops up, it would have a whole list of all the icons that are available. So I could load a bunch of icon sets on the back end that aren't loaded on the front end, but load them all there. So there's a whole list, and then there's a little box, and they start just typing whatever they want, whatever icon they would want, and then the list just filters down as they're typing. And so they would have, from all those different icon sets, they would just be able to pick whatever icon they want. So say they want a picture of a house, they just start typing house, the whole list would shrink down, and then depending on whichever icon they clicked, whatever icon set that was from, I would load whatever was necessary automatically. So they don't have to think about any of, they don't care that it's font awesome or, left icons, or they don't have to care about any of that, because I don't think most people using WordPress should have to worry about that. I think it should just be automatic. So that would be, if I had all the time in the world, I would do cool stuff like that.
It's a care of
Once Carol's off my back now. So I think font icons are really cool. I mean, they're definitely an improvement. They're not they don't solve all problems with images and stuff like that. I mean, they're one color for the most part, but there's some really cool stuff you can do with them. Like I think Yahoo Weather maybe does it, but they'll have a little tiny graphic with like a cloud, and then they'll have a separate icon with little rain droplets. And then if it's going to be cloudy, then they'll use that one icon. But if it's going to be cloudy and rainy, they'll use both icons and overlap them, and then they'll make them different colors. Or if it's going to be semi-cloudy with some sunshine, they'll use their sunshine icon and the cloud icon and make them slightly overlap. So they're like creating complex images with just a bunch of fonts like overlapping each other, a font icon overlapping each other, and that's pretty cool to do that kind of stuff. You get real creative like that, because I mean, like you said, it's infinitely scalable. You can change the colors and just do all kinds of fun stuff, and you don't have to be generating tons of images and have some photo guy for every combination that you want to do, constantly creating all these different images and variations of them. You just mess with them however you want. CSS, so that's pretty cool. Any other questions? Or? Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, I have a bunch of, I mean, I use it, it's my plugin, so I use it on a ton of my websites. And so, for example, let's look at, I think they have, I don't know one of theirs. Yeah, so right here, here's my plugin, and so I see there's Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. That's my plugin, creating those, and then I don't want all the different colors for all of those. It probably doesn't match their branding guidelines, obviously, but I don't care. It's my website, not theirs. So right there, so now it can match their website better. It can, and you can make it as big, as small as you want, and all that stuff. And so I just use my plugin. You can get all those icons you want. Yeah, and then I use CSS to do the hover effect, but I mean, just with the plugin itself, you can put those in. And then, but the hover effect. Yeah, I mean, it depends. It depends on your theme, because I mean, it's just a font. So just like these icons, see right here, these change colors or they do something, and they're a link. So whatever your links do on the page, I'm trying to see if there's just a standard link, not on this page, the home page, but whatever your links automatically do when you hover over them, by default, it'll just that same idea will happen, and it'll just trying to see. There's not really any links but buttons and stuff like that on this website, but there's one. Sidebar. Yeah, I can't see anything. But yeah, I mean, by default, it'll look like your website because it'll just take the CSS that's already in your theme for whatever fonts. So if there is whatever your links look like and act like normally, it'll kind of take that on. So you might not have to do anything special. So, any other questions? Yes.
From the graphic design standpoint, icons, they're really vectors.
Yeah.
So, and I know, like, I use social icons. So you just plug in your color, your color color, into your Facebook, whatever. Tell it if you want a circular square, rounded corners, and what have you. So where is it getting? Where is it getting those icons? Because I never stand an output. How is he generating like that WordPress?
It's just like WebDings or any of those. I mean, it's an actual font. So someone created a vector graphic, just like they do for icons or for fonts, normal fonts, all the letters. They have to create the vector version of that and convert it to font format. So a font format is vector based.
Okay, so then a regular output vector.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's grabbing those.
Yeah, just like any vector image itself. Yeah, it's similar to that. I don't know how you get into more technical than that because I don't know, but it's just the same way that it pulls any font, all those letters that it's pulling in. It just you say I want to use this font set, whatever it is, and then from that font file that's loaded, then it knows all the images. It knows the proper image to use based off of that.
So regular font, you type in the letters, and Google sees that as SEO credit.
Yes.
So for example, if I create a slider graph, I could do it in Photoshop and make it a font and website on it. But Google's not going to see that message, my dog knows it or whatever. If I
Right.
put that in Photoshop, Google's not going to see it.
Right.
So if you use the WordPress icon, is it understanding that from an SEO standpoint that equals WordPress?
Nope.
Oh, it's not.
Nope.
It's basically represented by a single letter. You just don't see the letter, you see the.
Oh, I got that.
So Google would just see it's like maybe the Facebook icon would be the letter F or
So
K or whatever it happened to be in that. Whatever was located in the
So that font icon right there, what its actual HTML code would be, is that right there.
Which is equivalent to a letter like.
Yeah, which is equivalent to some, I don't know if it's Unicode or ASCII or what, but there's some equivalent. So that's getting into a very technical aspect there, but there's always some sort of, every letter on there, P, A, R, E, every single letter has some Unicode value. I don't know. You'd have to ask an SEO person. Do title tags? Do they care that much about title tags?
Not a ton, but they do. That's.
Or title, I should say, attributes. Is that?
It helps a little, just like with images.
Just like alt tags.
Alt tags.
Yeah, I would say that. Like Google has no idea what this is right here for this, because every font you choose represents that Unicode character. It's probably is it ASCII or Unicode? What am I? Unicode. Okay. So the Unicode, that Unicode set right there, in every font is represented a little bit differently. And so with our icon set, it's represented as Facebook, but Google doesn't, they don't know that. And so you would have to put a title tag or something like that. So it's not worse than an image, I would say, from an SEO standpoint. I can't imagine that it would be because it doesn't know what an image is necessarily either. But so you'd need some other alt tag or in this case a title tag to describe what it is. That would help your SEO.
So have you, I was just going to say, have you used that with Yoast? All that SEO, that plugin at the same time? Do they cooperate?
Yeah, they cooperate.
Okay.
It doesn't really.
It wouldn't get in the way.
It doesn't get in the way in any way. Just like if you insert an image, Yoast would tell you need to put an alt tag or whatnot, but for this, it doesn't It doesn't. I don't know. I don't think they take into consideration icons like this. Anything else? I think we're out of time.
Okay, so that was kind of like a slash session and plugin review because we learned a little bit about Font Awesome. But what plugin next time do you want? Does anyone have a plugin that they want to see reviewed, that they wouldn't mind reviewing themselves and presenting? It's just a time we've had, I think, security. Is there any others that we've had?
Yeah.
What other? Oh, the gallery.
Yeah.
Gallery plugin. I think security. So, is there a plugin that you really would like to see demoed? Anyone? Bueller. No? Really? Okay, so I think last time we had talked about you doing back WP up. Are you able to do it next time?
Next time.
October. No, we're not doing multi-site here. I'll tell you in a sec what we're doing next time.
What? Why? I just used back WP up for a multi-site today.